Barnes. Yeah, I got one, Mark yelled out almost before the judge finished speaking. All heads turned back to where Mark was standing. He could see eyes in the crowd recognize him, and he heard mouths whispering, "Karate man, karate man." The crowd parted to let him through as if he was Moses and they were the Red Sea. He ignored the stares as he strode toward the front where everyone could better hear him. "Deputy Barnes," he started. Mark couldn't help but say the name like it left a bad taste in his mouth. "What would you do if you were told the whereabouts of a murderer this county had an arrest warrant out for?" Mark smiled inside. He had Barney now. No matter what the wannabe sheriff said, Mark would show it was a lie. "I would follow the protocol set forth by Texas law to arrest him and bring him back here for trial. I assume you're talking about Mr. Olson. Is that right, Mr. Turner? After you spoke with me about him and his whereabouts, I tried to contact the McMullen County Sheriff's Office, as according to your information, he was in their jurisdiction. I know you would have liked me to go get him, but I have no authority to effect any arrest down there. I don't think anyone here would want another sheriff just coming up here and hauling off one of our residents without the proper paperwork being done. Unfortunately, with the communication difficulties, I haven't been able to get a hold of them. I assure you that when I do, Mr. Olson, if he is there, will be brought to justice." Damn, he's smoother than I figured, Mark thought. That didn't go exactly like I had planned, but I'll get him with this one. "I have another question for you then. What if someone told you..." "I'm sorry, Mr. Turner, but I believe that it's Mr. Bauer's turn to answer your question," Barney said with a sickeningly sweet smile. "Isn't that right, Judge Hickman?" "Yes," the judge stammered. "Only one question at a time." "Mr. Bowers?" "Thank you, Judge." "I know what Mr. Turner is talking about here." Rob looked down at Mark and smiled. "Interim Sheriff Barnes was given good information and evidence that John Olson, the suspected murderer of Sheriff Kurt Thompson, was holed up at a remote ranch about 60 miles south of here. He could have acted on that information. Texas law says that if a law officer can cross out of his jurisdiction to effect an arrest within the state without the permission of the other jurisdiction. If he feels that a suspect for whom he has an arrest warrant would otherwise escape capture if he were to wait for permission. Every sworn peace officer is taught this law and tested on it before they can wear a badge and a gun. Mr. Barnes chose, for whatever reason, to ignore this law, and because he did, people have died. Because Deputy Barnes wouldn't do anything, Mr. Turner and some of his associates went down to the ranch to place Mr. Olson under citizen's arrest and bring him back here. Unfortunately, Mr. Olson and some of his accomplices had planned to attack Silver Hills at the same time. The story is too long for me to tell in my allotted time, but because of the courage of Mr. Turner and his team, the women who were held captive and tortured at the ranch were freed. Mr. Turner also was able to place Mr. Olson under citizen's arrest. Mr. Olson, who, in addition to being the #1 suspect in Sheriff Thompson's murder, also has a warrant out for murdering his own wife. In fact, I believe Mr. Turner wishes to turn the suspect over to the authorities here today. Isn't that right, Mark?" "That's right." Mark was happy that Rob had been able to do to Barney what he'd failed to do. Mark waited for John to be brought forward. Chaparro and Ralph dragged the prisoner to the stage. Barney, wide-eyed with surprise, motioned to a couple of his men to take John. "Way to go, karate man," someone at the back of the crowd yelled. The rest of the crowd began to cheer and chant Mark's nickname. "Karate man, karate man, karate man."